Every year, thousands of people check into hotel rooms, expecting clean sheets, free Wi-Fi, and a quiet night away from home. What most of them never think about is how many strange things happen behind those doors after midnight. Arguments nobody reports, guests who leave things behind that make no sense, rooms that smell wrong no matter how much bleach you use. And sometimes, people who check in but never really check out. If you had a job where you walked into strangers' rooms alone at 2 in the morning, what do you think the worst thing you could find would be? Dirty towels, blood a body, or something worse than that. Something that makes you wish you'd never opened the door at all. Tonight, I've got 4 stories from people who worked the night shift in hotels, and after hearing them, you may never look at a hotel hallway the same way again. Story 1. The room that was never checked out. My name is Melissa. I'm 28. And at the time this happened, I was working night housekeeping at a mid-range hotel outside St. Louis, Missouri. Nothing fancy. Nothing historic. Nothing people would call haunted. Just because it had old wallpaper and a chandelier that looked like it came from a vampire's dining room. It was one of those chain hotels off the interstate where tired families, traveling salesmen, and people who didn't want to be recognized usually ended up. I took the night shift because it paid a little extra, and because I'm the kind of person who genuinely prefers folding towels at 1 a.m. over making fake, cheerful small talk at 1 p.m. Most nights were boring. The lobby smelled like burnt coffee. The vending machine on the second floor made this dying refrigerator noise. My supervisor, Darlene, spent most of her shift watching crime shows at the front desk and pretending she was monitoring the property. My job was mostly simple. Handle late cleanups, prep a few vacant rooms, deliver extra blankets, clean anything gross that a day shift worker had strategically forgotten to mention. By around 2 in the morning, the building usually settled into that strange hotel silence where every little sound feels louder than it should. Ice machines groan. Elevators ding on empty floors. You hear TVs through walls, but never clearly enough to understand a single word. That night, Darlene handed me a clipboard and told me room 214 needed to be turned over immediately. According to the system, the guest had checked out early. She said it in that lazy way that meant she didn't want follow-up questions. I remember glancing at the note and thinking it was odd because 214 had been listed as a 2-night stay earlier in the evening. Still, hotel bookings changed all the time, so I grabbed my cart and went upstairs. The hallway on the second floor was freezing, colder than the rest of the building. I noticed that before anything else. The cleaning cart rattled over the carpet seams as I pushed it down to 214. The Do Not Disturb sign was still hanging on the knob. That was weird. Normally, if someone checked out the front desk, cleared the room in the system, and the sign got tossed or left inside. I knocked anyway. Housekeeping. Nothing. I knocked again louder this time and waited. Still nothing. I unlocked the door and pushed it open with my shoulder. The TV was on, not loud, just low enough to sound like somebody had muted half the world. Some late-night rerun flickered across the wall. The bed looked slept in, but not messy enough for a full stay. One side was turned down. The bathroom light was on. There was a half-full plastic cup by the sink, and someone's electric toothbrush sat plugged into the outlet like they'd be back any minute. I actually said out loud, "Okay, absolutely not." because the room had that feeling like I was interrupting something. There was a suitcase on the luggage rack zipped closed, a phone charger plugged into the wall, a pair of men's shoes neatly lined up under the desk. On the nightstand, there was a wallet. Not open, not hidden, just sitting there. I stood in the middle of the room with my rag bottle in one hand, trying to make it make sense. People forgot chargers all the time. Sometimes clothes. Once a guy left behind a wedding ring and called us screaming 3 hours later, like we'd staged a jewelry heist. But nobody forgets all of this. Nobody leaves their wallet, shoes, toothbrush, and luggage if they're checking out voluntarily. I called the front desk. Darlene picked up on the third ring, sounding annoyed that I'd interrupted what was probably the most dramatic part of her show. "Yeah, are you sure 214 checked out?" A pause. "System says yes." Well, unless the system also learned how to brush its teeth, somebody's stuff is still here. She sighed. "Bring down anything valuable. I'm not touching that room until somebody comes up here." Another pause. Then fine. I waited by the open door. The hallway felt too quiet. I could hear the hum of the vending machine all the way down near the ice maker. And underneath that, I thought I heard water running. Not from the bathroom, from inside the wall. Darlene eventually waddled up with the night auditor, a guy named Kevin, who always looked like he hadn't slept since middle school. They stepped into the room, took one look around, and both got quiet. Kevin checked the computer on his tablet and frowned. "That's not possible," what I asked. He turned the screen toward Darlene. "The keycard log shows the guest entered at 8:43 p.m. No exit log," Darlene said. "Maybe he left with the door open for someone." Kevin shook his head. "Then the latch would have shown activity. Nothing after 8:43. I don't know why that made the room feel smaller, but it did." Darlene went into the bathroom first. Empty. Shower dry. She checked the closet. Nothing. Kevin pulled back the curtains. Nothing outside except the parking lot and a dead-looking neon sign from the diner next door. Then Kevin picked up the wallet. Inside was an ID for a man named Robert Vance, 43, from Springfield, Illinois. There were credit cards, cash, everything. A completely intact life in folded leather. Darlene told Kevin to call the guest phone number on file. From somewhere in the room, a phone started vibrating. All three of us turned at the same time. The sound was muffled, buzzing wrong. Kevin followed it to the bed, leaned down and lifted the dust ruffle. There was a phone under their screen, lighting up with the hotel's number. Nobody spoke for a second. Then Darlene, in the bravest moment I ever saw from her, said, "Move the mattress." We pulled it out from the wall. Nothing. Checked under the bed frame. Nothing but dust, and one of those little plastic caps from a water bottle. Kevin ended the call. The buzzing stopped, and the whole room went back to that horrible low TV noise. Police came about 20 minutes later. They searched the room. Then the stairwells. Then the parking lot. One officer asked me the same questions in 3 different ways, like I'd somehow misplaced an entire adult man between fresh towels and glass cleaner. Another took the wallet and phone as evidence. The part I didn't tell them at first was the smell. Once the police arrived, and all of us had been standing in that room a while, I started noticing this faint odor under the detergent and stale air. Not exactly rot, not exactly mildew, more like wet metal and something sour. It got stronger near the wall behind the headboard. A maintenance guy came up and removed the panel behind the bed to check for leaks. There was no body in the wall. That would be too easy, and in a horrible way, less frightening. What they found was a narrow service gap running behind several rooms on that side of the building. Just enough space for pipes wiring And if someone was desperate enough a person to squeeze through, there were streaks of something dark along the insulation, scratches on the inner wood. And farther down in the section behind room 216, they found one of Robert's cufflinks. They never found Robert. No signs of a struggle in the room. No footage of him leaving the hotel. No clear explanation for how a grown man vanished from a second-floor room, while leaving behind literally everything he'd need to exist. The hotel never told employees the whole story, but rumors spread fast. Some people thought he'd been meeting someone and got lured into the service corridor. Some thought he was hiding from someone and crawled in there himself. One of the front desk girls swore there had been another booking tied to the same credit card under a woman's name, but that file disappeared after the police got involved. Room 214 was closed for 2 weeks, then rented out again like nothing had happened. I quit 3 months later, not because of the police, not even because of Robert. I quit because 2 weeks before my last shift, I was restocking towels on the second floor when I passed 214 and heard a phone vibrating inside. The room was vacant, and when I checked the door log later, nobody had been in there since checkout. So yeah, people always joke that housekeeping sees everything. They're wrong. Sometimes we only see what's left behind. Story 2. The Stain That Wouldn't Go Away. My name is Javier. I was 32 when this happened, and I worked overnight housekeeping at a boutique hotel in Santa Fe, New Mexico. The place looked beautiful in brochures. Adobe walls, soft lantern lights, woven blankets, local art in every hallway. If you saw it online, you'd think it was the kind of hotel where rich couples went to heal their marriages or pretend to be spiritually enlightened for a weekend. Working there was less magical. It mostly meant cleaning up after drunk wedding guests and finding wine glasses in places no wine glass should ever be. I worked nights because my wife had a day job, and we had a daughter in elementary school, so one of us needed to be home in the mornings. It was exhausting, but manageable. I'd get home around 6:30, make coffee that tasted like regret, help get my daughter ready for school, then sleep until noon, if the neighbor's dog decided to be merciful. The strange thing about night housekeeping is that you become familiar with a building in a way guests never do. You know which hallway traps cold air, which room always has plumbing issues, which ice machine sounds like it's swallowing marbles. You also learn that every hotel has at least one room nobody likes. At ours, it was room 308. Officially, there was nothing wrong with it. Good reviews, nice corner view, big tub. Unofficially, staff hated cleaning it. The room always felt humid even when the AC was running. Guests complained about a smell they couldn't describe. And every few months, some poor employee would mention a stain on the bedroom floor that looked darker than it should. The first time I cleaned 308, I didn't notice anything, except that the air felt thick, like breathing through warm cloth. The third time I saw it, a shadowy discoloration on the hardwood near the bed. Not huge, maybe the size of a dinner plate. From one angle, it looked brown. From another, almost black. I got on my knees with cleaner and a towel and scrubbed until my shoulder hurt. It lightened a little, then darkened again as it dried. I reported it. My supervisor, Renee, glanced at it and said moisture from the subfloor. Maintenance knows. She said it too quickly. Over the next few weeks, I ended up in 308 more often than I wanted because the hotel was busy and scheduling hated me personally. Every time the stain was there, sometimes lighter, sometimes darker. Once, after a family with 2 kids checked out, I found the little girl had drawn a circle around it in crayon. That should have been funny. It wasn't. One night after a couple left early, complaining the room smelled like pennies and wet dog, I was assigned to deep clean it. The hotel had a big reservation block coming in, and management wanted everything perfect. It was after 1 in the morning. The hallway was empty. I rolled my cart in, propped the door open, and started stripping the bed. The smell hit harder than usual once the bedding came off. That metallic smell people always talk about in scary stories. I hate to tell you this, but it's real. Maybe not dramatic enough for movies, but real. Like old coins left in a damp sink. I checked under the mattress, expecting maybe mold or a leak. Nothing. Then I noticed faint spots on the wall behind the headboard. Tiny dark freckles, almost invisible against the clay-colored paint. I scrubbed the floor stain again. Same result. It faded while wet, then returned. By then, I was annoyed more than scared. A big part of working in hospitality is being professionally irritated by other people's mess. So I called Renee and told her the floor needed refinishing, or replacement, because cleaner wasn't doing anything. She came up, stood in the doorway, and for the first time since I'd known her, she looked genuinely uncomfortable. "Just cover it with the rug for tonight," she said. I laughed because I thought she was joking. She wasn't. "What is this?" I asked. She crossed her arms. "You want the corporate answer or the real answer?" That sentence changed the temperature of the room for me. I said the real answer. She looked down the hallway before stepping inside and lowering her voice. 2 years ago, there was an incident here. Domestic dispute. The guest survived. That's not a real answer. She exhaled slowly. A woman was attacked in this room by her husband. He cut her badly. She made it to the bathroom and lived. He was arrested in the parking lot. I stared at the stain. Renee added, "The floor was replaced. Then why is it still here?" She didn't answer that. Just said, "Some of us think the wood underneath soaked up more than maintenance admitted." That should have been the end of it. Tragic, creepy, but explainable. Bad renovation. Hidden damage. Hotels cut corners all the time. Except a week later, I went into 308 after another early checkout and found something that made it impossible to laugh off. On the bathroom mirror, written through the steam residue, were the words, "Don't let him in," except the room was cold. No shower had been used. The mirror was dry. I called security. They checked cameras. Nobody had entered after the guests left. The guests themselves denied writing anything. They were an older couple from Phoenix who looked offended by the suggestion. Management tried to blame cleaning product residue, which is corporate language, for "Please stop making this our problem." I wiped the mirror clean. The next night, the room was occupied again. At 2:17 a.m., the front desk called me because the guest in 308 was demanding new sheets. I went up expecting the usual complaint. The woman who opened the door looked pale and furious. She said, "Your room is making noise." I thought she meant pipes. I asked what kind. She said like someone scratching under the floor. I changed the sheets while she stood in the hallway with her arms crossed. Her husband stayed in the bathroom, refusing to come out. I heard him arguing in a whisper, like he didn't want the room to hear him. Then, as I was tucking the fitted sheet, I felt it, a vibration under my feet. Not from the AC, not the cart. A deliberate, uneven dragging motion beneath the wood. I froze. The woman saw my face change and said, I bent down slowly. The stain was darker than I had ever seen it, almost wet-looking in the lamplight. Then there was a soft sound, 3 knocks, from under the floor. The husband came out of the bathroom right then and said they were leaving. Not tomorrow, not after a refund discussion. Right then, After they left, security and maintenance opened the access panel from the room below. Nothing. No animal. No pipe issue. No loose duct. No evidence of movement. A month later, room 308 was permanently taken out of service. Officially, for structural repairs. Unofficially, because guests kept complaining about the smell, the noise, and the dreams. That was the weird part. Different people, same complaint. They dreamed of a woman trying to speak, but unable to get enough air. I still worked there another year, but I never went into 308 alone again. Before I left that job, one of the older maintenance guys told me something he'd heard from the police report. Apparently, after the attack, the woman kept repeating the same sentence over and over in the ambulance. Not help me, not her husband's name. She kept saying. He was smiling before I opened the door. That line stuck with me because it made the whole thing feel less like a crime scene and more like a warning. Like whatever happened in that room didn't begin with violence. It began with the moment she let the wrong thing in, and some stains, whether they're in wood or memory, just don't come out. Story 3. The guest who never left the camera. My name is Tasha. I was 24, living in Reno, Nevada, and working the overnight housekeeping shift at a casino hotel because apparently I made several bad decisions in a row, and the universe decided to reward me with fluorescent lighting and secondhand cigarette smell. To be fair, I needed the money. If you've never worked in a casino hotel overnight, imagine a normal hotel, but louder, sadder, and somehow sticky at all times. At 3 in the morning, you get a weird mix of people gamblers who've been awake for 30 hours, couples breaking up in elevators, bachelor parties discovering consequences, and the occasional perfectly calm person who somehow seems the scariest of all. I mostly handled emergency cleanups and restocked occupied suites when the regular housekeeping team went home. Because the casino ran all night, there was always movement. Cameras everywhere. Security everywhere. Which in theory should have made it one of the safest places to work. That's why what happened with room 1712 bothered everyone so much. The guest checked in just after 11 p.m. Alone. Male. Mid-30s. Paid cash deposit, valid ID. One carry-on bag. Nothing dramatic. Security footage showed him entering the elevator, walking down the 17th floor hall, and unlocking his room. That should have been the last boring part of the story. At around 1:40 a.m., the woman in 1714 called the desk to complain about a high-pitched whining noise coming through the wall. Engineering was busy downstairs, so I got sent up to check whether it was a TV alarm or some idiot with a portable speaker. I knocked on 1712. No answer. The whining sound was faint but steady, almost electronic. I called the room phone from the hall phone. I could hear it ringing inside. Still no answer. Security came up with me because casino guests love suing people, and management preferred witnesses for everything. The guard with me, Vince, was one of those huge, gentle guys who looked like he could bench press a vending machine, but spoke like he was apologizing to furniture. He knocked hard and announced security. Nothing. The electronic sound kept going. Vince used a master key and opened the door. The room was dark, except for the bathroom light and the blinking blue standby light of the TV. The whining noise was coming from a medical device on the nightstand. It looked like one of those sleep apnea machines, except smaller. The bed hadn't been slept in. The carry-on bag sat by the chair, jacket over the backrest, wallet on the desk, room key next to it. Nobody in the bathroom, nobody in the closet. Windows sealed shut, because 17th floor and liability. Vince immediately radioed downstairs. While he did that, I noticed something dumb and tiny that made my skin go cold. The deadbolt was engaged from the inside, not the latch bar, just the deadbolt, which meant the guest had locked himself in. And yet there was no guest. Security took over fast. They checked adjacent rooms, emergency exits, stairwells, service corridors, roof access. Cameras became the center of everything. Because if there's one thing casinos trust more than people, it's footage. The cameras showed the guest entering 1712. They did not show him leaving, not by elevator, not by stairs, not through the hall, nothing. I know what you're thinking, blind spots. Camera failure. Human error. That's what everyone thought too. So they pulled more footage, hours of it. No one matching him appeared on any floor, any elevator bank, any exit, or the casino level. It was like he had entered that room and been erased. By 3 a.m., police were involved. By 4, everybody on staff knew something was wrong, but nobody knew how wrong. I ended up staying longer than I should have, because police wanted a statement about the initial room entry. While I was waiting near the security office, I heard 2 surveillance guys arguing quietly. One said, "Roll it back again." The other said I did. Then one of them called me over. He shouldn't have, but he did. He asked me, "When you entered the room, was the bathroom light on?" I said yes. He replayed the hallway footage of the guest arriving. You could see him unlock 1712 step and then pause. He didn't close the door immediately. He stood there for maybe 3 seconds just inside the room, like he was listening to something. Then, very slowly, he leaned back into the hall and looked both directions, not scared, not confused, like he had heard his name whispered and was trying to figure out who said it. Then he went inside and shut the door. A minute later, the bathroom light turned on under the gap. No one ever came out. One of the surveillance guys zoomed in on the lower edge of the door frame, probably hoping for a shadow movement, anything. There was something. At 11:18 p.m., about 10 seconds after the bathroom light came on, a shadow passed beneath the door, but it was wrong. It moved from the bathroom side of the room toward the hallway door, stopped, then moved back. Too thin, too tall. Not shaped like a person walking normally. More like something dragging part of itself. The footage quality was terrible, so police dismissed it as distortion. That's probably still the official explanation. But every employee who saw it stopped talking for a second the same way people do when their brain knows something before their mouth catches up. The police searched the room thoroughly. No sign of violence, no blood, no note. The guest's phone was found in the sink with the battery removed. The bag contained clothes, a pill organizer, and paperwork showing he was in town for a medical conference. Perfectly normal life. Perfectly normal man. Then they checked the room's maintenance history. 3 previous guests from 1712 had reported hearing someone in the bathroom at night. Not noises, not pipes. Someone. One woman said she woke up because she thought her husband was standing in the doorway staring at her, except he was asleep beside her. Another guest claimed he heard wet footsteps crossing the tile and stopping at the bed. He demanded a refund and left before dawn. Management had brushed all of it off as stress, drunkenness, or the standard hotel explanation for everything weird, and apologized for the inconvenience. A week later, the missing guest's family came to collect his belongings. I wasn't there for that, but Vince told me his sister asked whether anyone else had seen the person from the bathroom. Apparently, the guest had called her from the airport before checking in and joked that he hated hotels because he sometimes saw people in them when he was overtired. That should have made it less scary, maybe. But somehow it made it worse. because it suggested he expected something. I lasted another 6 months at that job. During that time, I refused every request involving 1712 unless security came with me. Most of them laughed about it. Right up until one of the bartenders checked into that room on a comp night and came downstairs at sunrise looking like she'd aged 5 years. She said she woke up because she heard someone whispering from the bathroom. Not words, just the sound of a voice trying to remember how words worked. She checked out immediately. The room is still in service as far as I know. Hotels don't like losing revenue over things they can't put in a maintenance ticket. But I'll tell you this, cameras are supposed to make you feel better. They give you the comforting illusion that if something happens, at least there'll be proof. Sometimes there is proof. Sometimes it just doesn't help, because there's a big difference between not knowing what happened to someone and seeing exactly where the world stopped making sense. Story 4. The door I was told never to open. My name is Aaron. I'm 31 now, but I was 26 when I started working nights at an old lakefront hotel in upstate New York. Not old in the charming Instagram sense. I mean, genuinely old. The kind of place that had been renovated so many times, it no longer agreed with itself. Narrow hallways leading into bright modern rooms. New carpet over warped floors. Wallpaper seams that never quite sat flat. The building felt like it was trying to smile with broken teeth. It was privately owned, not a chain, and the owners took a lot of pride in its history. Framed black and white photos lined the hallways, showing summer tourists from the 1940s, wedding parties from the 60s, boat races, Christmas banquets. Everybody looked cheerful in that stiff, old-fashioned way that somehow makes smiling seem suspicious. I worked night housekeeping and occasional laundry. The overnight team was tiny me. One desk clerk, one part-time maintenance guy named Lou, and a security guard, who mostly existed as a rumor. Because the hotel was older and had weird booking gaps in the off-season, I often got assigned strange one-off tasks. Clean the unused conference wing, inventory blankets in storage, dust rooms that technically weren't even rentable. That's how I learned about 407. I found the number on an old housekeeping checklist during my second month. Room 401 ready. 403 linen restock. 405 deep clean. 407 crossed out so hard the paper nearly tore. I asked Lou about it while we were folding sheets in the basement. He didn't even look up. No room 407, I laughed. Then why is it on the checklist? Still folding. Because old buildings have old paperwork. That should have sounded normal, but it didn't. Mostly because everyone in the hotel had that same reaction when I mentioned 407. Not confusion, not correction, just immediate shutdown. A few weeks later, I noticed something else. On the 4th floor between 405 and 409, the wallpaper pattern broke for about 6 feet. Same color, different texture, like someone had sealed over a doorway. I pressed on it once while vacuuming. Solid, no give. That night, the desk clerk, Marcy, saw me staring at the wall and said way too casually, "Don't go looking for things in this building after 2 a.m. It likes attention. That was the exact moment I realized I worked with lunatics, which would have been comforting if I hadn't already started feeling the same way. Winter made the hotel stranger. Occupancy dropped. The radiators hissed all night. Wind came off the lake and rattled the old windows so hard it sounded like fingernails moving over glass. Some floors would be completely empty, except for one booked room at the far end. which made every hallway feel staged. One Thursday in January, a pipe burst in a storage closet near the 4th floor. Lou had gone home sick, so Marcy handed me a ring of old keys and told me to check surrounding rooms for water damage. I remember saying, "You trust me with the murder keys." She didn't smile. I checked 401. Fine. 403. Fine. 405 had a damp patch near the vent. Then I saw it. A narrow door at the end of a tiny recessed section of wall I swear had not been visible before. No room number. Just painted over wood and an old brass knob. It was exactly where 407 should have been. I stood there for a while trying to decide whether I'd somehow never noticed an entire door before. The hall was silent except for the radiator clicking behind me. My keyring felt heavier than it should have. Then Marcy's voice came over the handheld radio, asking if everything was all right. I almost said yes. Instead, I said, "There's a door up here." Silence. "Then come downstairs. Not don't open it. Not leave it alone. Just come downstairs," in a tone usually reserved for children holding knives. That should have been enough. But if you've ever worked a dull job in a creepy building at 3 in the morning, you know curiosity becomes its own kind of drug. Plus, I told myself there had to be a normal explanation. Old service room. Sealed suite. Forgotten storage space. Something boring and disappointing. I tried the first key. Nothing. Second key. Nothing. Third key turned. I wish more than almost anything that it hadn't. The door opened inward, about 6 inches before sticking. Cold air came out. Not drafty winter air. Stale, trapped cold, like opening a freezer that had been unplugged for years. I pushed harder. The room inside was dark, but not empty. Moonlight from the lake reflected through a single narrow window, enough for me to see old furniture shapes under sheets. A bed frame, dresser, chair. The air smelled like dust lake water and something faintly sweet underneath, like old perfume trapped in fabric. It looked untouched, not abandoned in the messy way real rooms get. Preserved, like someone had closed the door during a sentence and never come back to finish it. There was floral wallpaper inside that didn't match the rest of the hotel. A pitcher and basin on a washstand, an ancient suitcase near the bed, and on the vanity, a hairbrush with strands still caught in it. I actually took one step in. That's when the door swung shut behind me, not slammed, just closed firmly enough to make my whole body lock. I spun around and grabbed the knob. It wouldn't turn. Behind me, something creaked. You know how old buildings settle, and your brain automatically labels it harmless, because otherwise you'd never function. This wasn't that. It was the sound of weight shifting where no weight should have been. I turned slowly. The sheet draped over the chair near the window had changed shape. Not much. Just enough to suggest that something was now sitting under it. I stood there staring, waiting for my brain to provide a better explanation. It didn't. Then I heard breathing, very soft. Very close, not in front of me, behind me. I yanked the knob harder. It turned this time, and the door flew open so fast I hit the wall coming out. My radio had fallen somewhere inside, but I didn't go back for it. I ran to the stairwell and nearly collided with Marcy coming up. She took one look at my face and didn't ask if I was joking. We went downstairs. She locked the old keyring in the desk drawer and poured me coffee with shaking hands. After about a full minute, she said, "Did you see her?" That was not the question I wanted. I said, "See who?" Marcy looked exhausted, like this conversation had been waiting years for somebody else's turn. She told me that decades earlier, before renovations, 407 had been part of a lakeside suite where a woman staying alone disappeared during the winter off-season. Some said she drowned in the lake. Some said she left in the night. Some said a hotel employee helped cover up whatever really happened. No body, no charges, just rumor and eventually a remodel, according to Marcy. Guests in nearby rooms had occasionally complained over the years about hearing a woman moving around brushing her hair, humming. Once a contractor working on the 4th floor swore he found a room where no room should be, then couldn't find the door again after lunch. I wanted to dismiss all of it. Stress, suggestion, old building hysteria. Then Lou came in the next evening, pale and sweating from the flu. And the first thing he asked me was, did it smell like lilies? I hadn't told him about the sweet smell. Apparently, every person who ever had an experience connected to 407 mentioned lilies. I quit pretending to be skeptical after that. The worst part happened on my final week there. I was finishing laundry around 4 a.m. when the service elevator stopped on 4, even though nobody had called it. The doors opened. Inside was my radio, same one I'd dropped in the room, resting neatly in the center of the floor. No one else was there. I gave notice the next day. Before I left, I walked the 4th floor one last time in daylight, because daylight makes cowards of ghosts and liars of memories. Between 405 and 409, there was only wall. Same wallpaper all the way across. No recessed section. No door. I stood there long enough that a guest passing by asked if I was lost. Maybe I was. Because I still don't know what frightens me more, that I opened a room I wasn't supposed to, or that part of me still wonders what would have happened if I'd stayed inside a little longer. Sometimes I think about that chair near the window, about the shape under the sheet, and about how gently the door closed behind me, as if whoever was in there had been waiting a very long time for someone to finally come in and keep her company. Those were 4 stories from people who worked the kind of job most hotel guests barely think about. The people replacing your towels, collecting your sheets, and stepping into rooms after everyone else has gone to sleep. Maybe that's why these stories hit so hard. Hotels are supposed to feel temporary, safe, and forgettable. But sometimes behind one locked door, a stranger leaves more than luggage behind. If you made it this far, let me know which story unsettled you the most. And if you've ever worked in a hotel, hospital, apartment complex, or anywhere with long, empty hallways and doors you didn't want to open, I'd love to hear your story too. Don't forget to subscribe if you want more true creepy stories like these, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next upload. New stories go up every week. If you'd like to support the channel, check out the podcast and the Patreon for extra content. Until next time, lock your door, check the room twice, and maybe don't assume an empty hotel room is actually empty.